in-depth, investigative. This is KXAN News.
And thanks so much for being with us. I'm Daniel Marin.
And I'm Jennifer Sanders. After decisive midterm wins, Governor Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick were sworn in this morning for their third terms at the Texas Capitol.
And both leaders gave a preview of what they'll do this legislative session. Our Capitol correspondent Monica Madden has been covering the inauguration all day long. Monica, any surprises so far?
Well, if you're an out-of-stater like me, you might be surprised by how many Texas songs there are. But no, today there weren't really any surprises from both the governor and lieutenant governor. A lot of their messaging was similar to what we heard on the campaign trail. But today we did get some more specifics on how they plan to use that $33 billion surplus that's already characterizing this legislative session, and heard a lot specifically on property taxes. A celebration of the Lone Star State.
Probably different than other states.
Texans from all over trek to Austin, taking in the fanfare of the main event.
It was great. It really was.
The third inauguration of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
So help me God.
And Governor Greg Abbott.
And will to the best of my ability.
While the thousands of people here today came for the pomp and circumstance and celebration of Texas, today we got a better idea of how this legislative session might play out, with leaders saying to expect one of the most conservative sessions in Texas history.
The Texas is not strong without strong conservative policies.
The president of the Senate gave passionate remarks about Texas excellence and what policies he thinks will ensure its future.
And in the budget that we will release this week, the Texas Senate will raise your homestead exemption to $70,000, which will save you thousands.
Abbott's speech closely paralleled his number two.
Texas is America's undisputed economic leader.
With echoes of his promises on the campaign trail, pledging to supporters to at least expect one thing.
And that we are going to ensure that Texas remains the greatest state in the greatest country the world has ever known.
While we heard a lot about policy, today was largely about celebration and fanfare. A lot of that is continuing tonight over at the Moody Theater downtown. I do want to point out, though, that Governor Abbott did not actually and has not given his specific list of priorities for emergency items that lawmakers must immediately work on. We're waiting for that, and we'll hear about what his immediate action items are during his State of the State address in February. Jen, Daniel, back to you.
All right, Monica, thanks so much. 6 people are hospitalized after a fire today at the Phillips 66 complex in Hutchinson County. That's an oil refinery about 50 miles northeast of Amarillo. The fire at the Johnson Tank Farm is now out.
An unsuccessful candidate for New Mexico's state legislature now faces a long list of charges in connection with a string of shootings at the homes of Democratic lawmakers. 39-year-old Solomon Peña is accused of paying 4 men to carry out 4 shootings at the homes of 2 county commissioners and 2 state legislators. He's also accused of taking part in at least one of the shootings himself.
APD essentially discovered what we had all feared and what we had suspected, that these shootings were indeed politically motivated. And that has basically been confirmed by this investigation.
No one was injured inside the homes that were hit by gunfire.
A terrifying kidnapping attempt caught on camera. Police in Washington state are looking for a man who tried to abduct a barista by pulling her through a drive-through window early Monday morning. The Auburn Police Department released this video right here. It is asking the public for their help in identifying the man who grabbed a young woman as he was paying for his order and tried to pull her into his truck. The man even tried to get a looped zip tie device around her head during that attack, and she was able to pull herself out of his grip, and then the man sped away. Police say the suspect has a unique tattoo on his left forearm that appears to read Chevrolet.
First warning weather with Chief Meteorologist David Yeomans.
Well, we did what we feared we would do. The warmest January on record continues, with temperatures today hitting a new record high, 82 degrees in Austin, beating the record from 1999 by just 1 degree. Out at the airport, almost as warm, tying their record of the day from 1999. Hitting 80. Temperatures have taken a little bit of a dive from Austin eastward, lower 70s at Camp Mabry out to Bastrop and Giddings. Still very warm in Mason and parts of Bastrop County. That's because that's where the low humidity, dry air lies. Little humidity creeping back into Austin this evening from the east, and that helps actually keep our temperatures in check. Coming up in your forecast, we're tracking a cool front. I'll show you where to expect some rain showers tomorrow morning and some dangerous wildfire concerns a little later in the day.
All right, David, thank you very much. The TSA says agents confiscated a record 6,542 guns at airport checkpoints last year, and about 88% of them were loaded. While Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International led the way with 448 firearms found, Austin Bergstrom International made the top 10. Agents here confiscated 150 guns in 2022. Individuals who bring weapons to TSA checkpoints are subject to federal civil penalties that could reach $15,000. You can travel with firearms as long as you follow the rules and properly pack them in checked luggage.
President Joe Biden is facing growing pressure following the weekend discovery of additional pages of classified documents in his Delaware home. As Alice Barr reports, he ignored questions for a fifth straight day during this morning's meeting with the Dutch Prime Minister.
The questions are growing louder. President Biden's silence more pronounced.
When it comes to legal issues, we have been very clear that we are not going to comment. We are not going to politically interfere.
As Republicans press for answers about classified documents from his time as vice president found at Mr. Biden's home and former private office.
Prior to an election, they kept it secret. At no time did he get raided by the FBI.
House Republicans opening investigations and demanding visitor logs from the president's Delaware home, citing national security concerns.
He's probably had a lot of people come over there, whether it's workers, whether it's staff, whether it's friends, like who knows?
The Secret Service says it performs background checks on visitors but does not maintain logs at a president's personal residence. Sources tell NBC News President Biden is frustrated with the administration's failure to draw a contrast between his team turning over uncovered classified documents and former President Trump's refusal to do the same, leading to the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago. Still, Republicans object to leaving the search of President Biden's home to his personal attorneys, who do not have security clearances. And many are questioning how the documents made it out of secure areas to begin with.
The reality is these documents are well marked, and that's why they're well marked.
The White House insisting that while it can't answer every question publicly, it is cooperating fully with the special counsel investigation. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
The White House counsel's office held a rare press call today describing the tension between making information public while respecting an ongoing investigation. The office also accused Republicans of fake outrage while promising to respond to congressional questions in good faith.
Flooding and landslides have roads closed across California. Just ahead, the long road ahead and some good news for those who've endured weeks of storms.
And also meet the Georgetown performer inducted into the Tejano Roots Hall of Fame.
And the promise of free care for all veterans experiencing a mental health crisis. A train in California is stuck. The Altamont Corridor Express train carrying 220 passengers was hit by a landslide in Alameda County. Now, the train did not derail, but it is unable to move, and passengers were forced to exit and board another train.
And this all comes as California finally gets a break from weeks of violent weather. But as Jake Gray reports from Santa Cruz, it's going to be a long and difficult recovery.
Sunshine, blue skies. This is what California is supposed to look like. But for the better part of 3 weeks, it's looked like this. 9 storms known as atmospheric rivers, delivering blizzard conditions in the mountains, historic flooding along the coast. That water ripping apart roadways, tearing apart hillsides.
I mean, right now it's still triage. We're still in the active disaster phase.
But an end to the assault from Mother Nature now allowing communities and crews to transition toward recovery.
This is the largest winter storm that PG&E has seen in its history. We restored over 2.8 million customers.
All those outages just along the Central Coast, one of the hardest hit regions. 7,000 men and women riding a roller coaster as each storm moved through.
We would get down to 3,000 customers and then wake up in the morning and it's up to 20 again. So it's been a long effort, but everybody's been focused.
The focus now across the state, getting California back to some kind of normal. Jay Gray, NBC News, Santa Cruz.
And while the pummeling rain continues for our friends out west in California, we have gotten zero rain from any of those storms in the last 14 days. Another dry day in the books in Austin, only 0.07 of an inch early in the year. We've got your first warning forecast and the next chance of rain tomorrow morning. Next.
A Georgetown man was recently inducted into the Tejano Roots Hall of Fame.
The honor pays tribute to musicians who keep the long legacy of the genre alive. KXAN's Mercedes Hernandez has the origins of his music journey and what this award means to him.
Guitarist Johnny Joe Leal now lives in Georgetown, but for decades, the road was his home.
Oh, Chicago. After that, we went to Arizona and Phoenix, and then from Phoenix we'd come to Texas.
His musical journey started when he was just 15 years old in Houston, sweeping his mom's kitchen floor, broom in hand.
The music was playing, and she saw me, and I was using it like a guitar. My birthday is in December, and she bought me my first electric guitar, a Fender.
Leal's mother started a love for music that just a few weeks ago earned him a spot in the Tejano Roots Hall of Fame.
It's got my name written on there.
Tomas Medina with the Tejano Music Alliance of Texas says it's important to remember veterans of the genre like Leal.
It's our culture, and we need to preserve it for future generations. They know the history of where they came from. Yeah, it is important to keep it going.
While the music has slowed over the years, it's never stopped for Leal, and he says it probably never will.
There you go.
In Georgetown, Mercedes Hernandez, KXAN News.
And the Tejano Roots Hall of Fame Museum is based in Alice, which is in South Texas. Roots stands for Remembering Our Own Tejano Stars. In May 2001, then Governor Rick Perry designated Alice as the official birthplace of the Tejano musical tradition.
First warning weather with Chief Meteorologist David Yeomans.
Well, after a ridiculously warm January day, quite literally the warmest January 17th in Austin record-keeping history, things are looking a little bit cooler and more reasonable right now. Temperatures have already dropped 9 degrees from our 82-degree high temperature as a little more humidity moves back in from the east. Otherwise, just a few high clouds and a little hazy out there on a pleasant Tuesday evening. It is still very warm west of 281, 80 in Marble Falls and Horseshoe Bay, middle and upper 70s to near 80 through the rest of the hill country. In the Austin area, again, a little humidity encroaching from the east has dropped us to more reasonable weather this evening. 70 degrees down in southern Travis County, 71 at Austin Bergstrom International Airport, east of 35, where we've been a little cooler all day, still sitting in the upper 60s from Elgin to Bastrop. Our pollen slide looking a little more crowded and a little worse than we'd like to see here. Our latest sample from the roof here on KXAN showing cedar and mold both high and trending higher in the past 24 hours. Notice we got a storm system catching your eye on the satellite and radar. This thing could drop a foot of snow in Denver in the next 24 hours. It starts to impact our weather overnight and has a bigger impact on our weather tomorrow. Not only that one are we watching over the next few days, but another one a little farther out, way over here in the Gulf of Alaska. This low pressure influences our weather on Saturday. Unfortunately, even with 2 western storms dropping lots of precipitation elsewhere, they just failed to do so again here. Over the next 5 days, some of us remain rain-free. Those who do see rain see very light accumulations, I think 1/10 of an inch or less for most of us. Nevertheless, it will start to look a little different out there. A few high clouds this evening, but a blanket of clouds thickens up a bit overnight as that storm system number 1 drags a little boundary, a weak cool front into the hill country early in the morning. A little line of showers accompanies it and also precedes it. A little light rain tomorrow morning as you get your day going, 7 a.m. in the metro and eastern counties. After that time, the boundary pulls east of I-35, clearing any rain from the Austin area before 9 a.m. and the sun comes out after that for all of us, with any chance of rain even east ending before noon. The wind becomes a bigger issue for us later in the day after minimal rainfall amounts early in the morning. Look at this. A little breezy when you wake up, but winds by noon, 20, even 30 plus miles an hour. Later in the day, they'll be strongest out west in the hill country with gusts over 30 miles an hour expected, and that warm west wind dies out a bit finally after sundown tomorrow evening. Not quite strong enough for a wind advisory, but strong enough and dry enough to prompt wildfire danger concerns. We have a fire weather watch issued by the National Weather Service for all of the hill country from noon to 8 p.m. tomorrow. That combination of low humidity, strong winds, and of course current drought conditions, that's going to set the stage for something, if it starts, to spread very rapidly. So what can we all do? Well, especially in the hill country, let's do our part to make sure no wildfires accidentally start in the first place. Very warm weather has been the rule all month, hasn't it? But we're not done with winter quite yet. Not only does February typically bring us some cold weather, but temperatures actually trend downward for the rest of the week. Tomorrow, still abnormally warm in the 70s, but the cooler air does eventually bring us even below normal by this weekend. High temperatures on Saturday, for instance, down to 59. All right, temperatures tonight warmer than Saturday's high, 60 degrees as clouds increase and south winds blow. A little chance of a sprinkle overnight, then a 30% chance of some morning showers tomorrow. Then the sun comes out after mid-morning, 77 and windy. The winds will turn to the north after that. That's going to bring in some cooler air under sunny skies Thursday and Friday. Storm number 2 I showed you way out in the Pacific brings clouds, but nothing more than a few light rain showers and some cool weather to start off the weekend. Early next week, sunshine with highs in the 60s, then another minor chance of seeing any beneficial rain on Tuesday.
Just ahead, free crisis care for every veteran who benefits from a big policy change taking place this week. A man found responsible for a road rage shooting of an innocent 17-year-old after an Astros game in 2021 has learned his fate. 35-year-old Gerald Williams pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Paul Castro was driving home from the game when he exchanged hand gestures with Williams, who was driving a white Buick, and became angry. Williams followed Castro and shot into his car, killing his 17-year-old son.
Well, beginning today, all U.S. military veterans in suicidal crisis are eligible for free care at any VA or private facility. And unlike for most other medical benefits, veterans do not have to be enrolled in the VA system to be eligible for this care. That means more than 18 million vets in the U.S. could be eligible. The new policy includes up to 30 days of inpatient or crisis residential care and up to 90 days of follow-on outpatient care. And with this new benefit, there is no copay and there are no fees. If the veterans receive care at a private facility rather than at a VA facility, the government will cover the costs. The VA will also reimburse veterans for ambulance rides to hospitals. Now, the VA reported that in 2020, more than 6,000 of our veterans died by suicide. That's more than 16 per day. We expect to learn more about this policy this coming Friday.
For the first time in decades, China has fewer people than it did at the start of last year. The National Bureau of Statistics reports that mainland China had 850,000 fewer people at the end of 2022. Notably, more than 1 million fewer babies were born last year amid a slowing economy and widespread pandemic lockdowns. China has sought to bolster its population since officially ending its one-child policy in 2016, but experts believe the high cost of raising children and competition in the labor and housing market are also behind falling birth rates. India may soon overtake China as the world's most populous nation if it has not already. Estimates put India's population at more than 1.4 billion and growing.
Tonight on KXAN, Night Court returns to NBC, premiering with back-to-back episodes beginning at 7. And then La Brea is all new at 8, and so is New Amsterdam at 9. And then we're back with KXAN News at 10.
Or you can join us an hour earlier for KXAN News at 9 o'clock on the CW Austin. And here's where to find us.
Thanks for listening to KXAN News Nightly. You can also listen to KXAN News Today every morning for more in-depth coverage of what matters most to you.